Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. It is time to just enjoy what I enjoy, and we are going to be building ourselves a big ol' Hexa model kit. This is the V-Thor Gaifu Kaisei, which is a side grade of the original V-Thor model, except with a bunch of samurai stuff all over it in a nice red comet-esque reddish color. So in case you aren't familiar with the Hexa stuff, I've had a couple videos on it before. It tends to be a more small scale, almost like Microman size, if you really want to date yourself, Micronauts type figure line from Kotobukiya, which they've been putting out for quite a few years now. And for the longest time, I've always wanted to build one of the actual robot kits. So the Hexa figures are pretty, I don't want to say small, but you know, they're small and they're pricey. So I figured if we're going to spend the money on one of these kits, then why not go all in and actually get one of the big sets? So usually these things have some sort of a cockpit that actually fits the 1/24th scale figures in them, meaning that these figures themselves end up being quite large. So this particular kit, as you can see here, is consisting of all sorts of pieces. And then the idea with a lot of the Hexa figures is that you can kind of customize them and design them yourself as to what goes where with all kinds of little modular connection points. Now, one of the neat things about this guy, so he's got these giant swords. He's about the size of a Master Grade Gundam kit. We've got multiple head options available. You got the big giant weapons. Now, he does not come with the governor figure. That's what a lot of the Hexa figures are called. But then they have, like, you can make these crazy combinations where they've turned him into a kaiju by combining him with one of the bat figures. So I'm all for it. I don't own the bat figure, but maybe this is a good excuse for me to go pick one up. I know my brother has one of the original V-Thor kits, which he has yet to build, I want to point out. So obviously I'm going to have to get to it first. I offered to take it off his hands and swap him some kits, but he never got back to me, so obviously I needed to take matters into my own hands here. So you can see some nice red sprues, the main connection points in the torso, big bulky pieces, those are nice to see. I've heard a lot of good things about this kit as well, that the joints are pretty stable and things are pretty sturdy. There's no weird gimmicky transformation, which I am not a fan of. Never have been, never will be. Pre-molded hands. Looks like all of the inner workings, quite a few pieces there. One of the shield pieces, which I'm not sure where they end up on this. A lot of joints. A lot of joints. I'm just trying to get to the instructions, guys. Okay, some nice translucent effect parts. More translucent effect parts. Not a lot in the way of pre-painted. Ooh, look at all of those little polycaps. Fun. Somewhere in this is supposed to be my little postcard. They always have a little postcard included, and I don't see it. I am dismayed. Maybe it's stuck in the instruction manual. Let's get that big box out of the way. I'm sure you guys are more interested in the actual model kit than the box as it is. I do like the kind of black and white, bluish gray color scheme that the original had. Here we go. It is included. Hooray. It's one of the very few times you'll see this table pretty much cleared off of all clutter, other than a few friends that I like to have hanging around here. Some of the models that I really enjoy. You can see our little Cobra Mode Hanzaki bust that's been sitting here for ages with a blue resin that I can't ever find that I ordered now. Anyway, thought that was going to be a separate piece. We've got the color guide included. I'm assuming the blued out parts here in the display, that's a lot of parts, are not going to be used. If you want to order replacement stuff, that is where you can buy it from. It's nice that they offer it. It'd be nice if they offered it outside of Japan at times. One of the cool things is, I can't keep my camera sturdy, that's for sure. No, they actually, if you aren't familiar with a lot of the concepts, especially with a Kotobukiya kit, they tend to be a little bit more advanced in terms of how things are going to be removed, so they do kind of walk you through that. No, there are no English explanations for anything, but it is kind of nice to see everything is in full color. I'm not used to that. Usually, you know, it's the black and white line art for these things. I feel like someone told me that they thought building model kits was like the adult version of Legos, and I was like, that actually is kind of an apt point. I need to build that. I'm just looking at that, and I'm like, I need to build that. Makes me think of like Monster Hunter. You want some weird Monster Hunter collaborations? There's Zoid versions of some of the flagship monsters. The Rathalos or Rallius have had some. A lot of parts for just a simple sword. Kind of nice to see. So, I'm going to get this thing started. Good 35 pages of instructions. Always fun to take a look through. Lots of parts. It's going to keep me happy and occupied for at least a few afternoons, to say the least. So if you want to see how this thing turns out, I certainly do. Why don't you stick around and let's find out. Alright, I got our V-Thor all put together here. And I gotta say, it wasn't a bad kit. I enjoyed my time with it. But I have to say, it left a bit of a bittersweet taste in my mouth. Not literally, but figuratively. In terms of the price, like, I mean, honestly, it's a pretty solid kit. My one real dismay is if you don't have anybody in the actual cockpit here. You can see you have the spot for an actual hexagear figure to just basically slide on in, but I'm not going to jam it in there and fight with it right now on camera. But you totally get the idea. They are totally compatible, so if you have a bunch of hexagear or similarly sized figures, they will totally fit in there. You probably have to remove some of the extra bits that the people have. Other than that, I'm not a big fan of the connection for the weapons attached to the back of the armor, shoulder armor. I think it would have made more sense to put it on to the backpack, but then again, with the hexagear stuff, it's not like you can't do that anyways. You can see there's so many different modular plug-in spots on the figure itself that really isn't going to be much of an issue. In terms of posability, I gotta say everything is really pretty solid. Joints are nice and cooperative. Nothing loose, nothing floppy. That's always a plus. Very Sazabi-like with that head there. Multitude of hands. The feet do leave some challenges in terms of stability, just because there's not a whole lot of flat surface, but if you do have access to any of the hexagear Kotobukiya stands, bases, you at least have that universal plug right there on both feet to go ahead and plug things in. So, again, size-wise, construction-wise, quality-wise, I'm pleased with things. And it does have the little manipulator arms in there. You can see here it's pretty comparable to like about a master grade sized figure. Grabbing my usual 1/144th Gundam here, because I think most people are familiar with that at least. Getting a bit more exotic with like a 30-minute fantasy figure. You know, but again, the thing that really, I got it for a reasonable price, but I feel like, as is usually the case with a lot of Kotobukiya stuff, you're getting something a bit overpriced. I feel like for the quality these days, I mean, like the tastier here from Homoxian, like the Kangdao Tiandi, yeah, they're third-party models, but they're original designs. They were cheaper than this guy, way more robust construction, a heck of a lot of options for both of them. I mean, they're just really overall solid, good kits, and I gotta say, you know, just the attention to detail on the Homoxian stuff in general is really cool. But again, fraction of the price. Or they have, like, you know, die-cast content too. So it's something to keep in mind. I guess if you're one of those diehards that absolutely, you know, has to support only the Japanese companies when it comes to, you know, model kits and stuff, which I think is kind of a silly way to be, especially in the current day and age where we've seen a lot of innovation and like really creative design work from mass-produced kits out of China. It just, I don't know. I've encountered that, you know, and I guess it's kind of the old guard, which, you know, I hate to say I am kind of part of in that sense of, you know, being with collecting, building Gunpla since like the early 90s, if not earlier, maybe the very late 80s. But again, it is a cool looking kit. It does have a bunch of options like the gimmicky shields, the weapons, the fold out arms that I don't feel like messing with because I don't remember exactly how they all connect and I don't want to make a mess here. The modularity of it. It's a neat figure. But again, when it's supposed to be probably close to, I've seen it for like 10,000 yen, I don't feel that that's worth it. But if you do end up in a situation like me where you're able to get it for a good price, I say go for it then. I think you'll probably enjoy it, and definitely when it's not really breaking the bank, I think it's a lot more worth it. If you have any experience with any of the other Hexagear big kits, by all means, I'd love to hear your thoughts, results, comments as well. Because as it is, I'm always on the lookout for more new figures to build and design and play around with. So I'm always open to trying new things. And with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.